Some people have a level of executive function that allows them to demolish to-do lists and coordinate calendars and just stay on top of everything. I am not one of those people. This is not a video for super productive people. If you are one of those, go do something else, I guess. That's like what you're good at. This is more of a video for people who have an overdue library book about productivity that they haven't started yet and they can't find because it's hidden under a hoodie in the front seat of their car. I am a fairly chaotic person. I have a hard time staying on top of stuff, and it's real easy for me to procrastinate. I'm not just a sloppy Joe, I'm a sloppy pro. But I have met people who, at least from the outside, seem to be much better at having their stuff together, who are worried about money. And me, for all my chaotic glory, I'm not. And it's not because I just don't care about money. I like having money to buy essentials. The reason I don't worry about money is over the last several years, I've learned to be pretty good with my money. That stuff does not come naturally to me. It is a skill I had to learn. And if a sloppy king like me can learn how to get good with money, then I guarantee you can learn too. So in this video, we're gonna help each other out, because by filming this video, I'm gonna force myself to do something I've been putting off for a long time, which is organizing my board game collection. And I'm gonna help you with something that maybe you've been putting off, which is just getting your act together with money. Now, I personally know that if a task seems really overwhelming, that's something I'm likely to procrastinate on, which is why I've broken this guide into 5 manageable steps that you can do in 5 to 10 minutes over 5 days total. Now, you can go through this whole guide just using a pen and paper or a spreadsheet, but if you want to make this as easy as possible, and it's probably going to come as no surprise, I would recommend that you download the YNAB app and start a 34-day free trial. The app is set up in a way that's going to help you implement this guide. It's going to do a bunch of the math for you, and you can connect your bank accounts to it, so you're not having to write down every transaction manually. You can just have it beamed in automatically. If you're someone who tends to put things off or struggles to stay on top of stuff like this, that this tool is going to make it much easier for you to do that. So let's get going. Now, before we get started with getting you good with money, we're gonna do something that I like to call virtuous procrastination. These are things that aren't gonna move you directly toward the goal you're trying to accomplish, but they're gonna make the process of moving toward that goal easier, more fun, more enjoyable. And the first thing you're gonna do to make this process more enjoyable is you are gonna get yourself some rewards. Getting good with money is a long-term goal, and it can feel like there's not a lot of immediate reward, which is why, especially as we're setting you up here, we want to make sure that we are manufacturing some. Before you get started, I want you to get yourself an actual reward that you can enjoy at the end of each of those 5 days. And I give you full permission to spend money on this. If you got to pay $50 to motivate you to do this thing that is ultimately going to save you tens of thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future, that's a worthwhile investment. It can also be fun to make the final day be kind of an extra big reward. Like if you're doing this with a partner, maybe you go out to dinner together, maybe you get yourself a nice book or a nice little board game, something like that. Once you've decided on what your 5 rewards are gonna be, the next thing I'm gonna recommend is make yourself a doggone playlist. Something you can listen to every time you sit down to do this, so that it's just a little more fun, a little more enjoyable. It could be Sandstorm played on loop, it doesn't really matter. And if all that sounds like too much work, you can scan this QR code and that'll take you to a playlist that I made for doing this. There's no email you need to submit to get it. It's just a playlist that full of bops that I like with no tangible theme. Then it's time for the hardest part, getting started. So for day 1, we're keeping things really simple, because the real grit of today is that this is the day you're actually gonna face all those things that you've been avoiding. In order to get you started and to not have you give up, we want this to be an easy win. So there's just 3 things you need to do that should take you no more than 5 minutes, really. So the first thing is that you are going to go look at your savings and checking accounts. We're not looking at your credit cards. We're not looking at your retirement accounts. We're just looking at the cash you have on hand that you can easily access right now. So write down the amount of money that is sitting in all of your liquid accounts and add that number together. For the rest of this process, we are going to be laser focused on just that cash. We're not going to be looking ahead to a future paycheck. We're not going to be thinking about like things that are going to happen in the future with tax refunds or bonuses or whatever. We're just looking at what can I afford right now. Once you've got that number, the next thing I want you to do is to set aside some money for your housing, so your rent or mortgage, your groceries, and your transportation costs. So either your gas or like your bus fare or train fare. Now, groceries or transportation, I know that those can be kind of variable. Maybe you aren't 100% sure of how much you spend on those things. What I would say is just give it your best guess. If you really want, you can look back over your bank statements and see like roughly how much have you spent on groceries or whatever, but you probably already have a decent sense. And if you're not sure, just guess a bit higher than that. So all you're doing here is just subtracting your housing expenses, your groceries, and your transportation costs from that big number. And that's gonna represent you setting that money aside so that you know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you actually have it. And that's it. Add up your bank balances, figure out how much you wanna set aside for housing, food, transportation, and then subtract those numbers from your big number. That's setting us with a starting point where you're aware of exactly how much money you actually have, and it's giving you the assurance that you've got money right now to put a roof over your head, to feed yourself, and to get the places you need to go. Once you've done that, you can crack open that soda or play that episode of that show or pet your dog or whatever reward you decided on because you did it. The hardest part is over. Now, day 2 is going to be a little more involved, but also doesn't require a lot of brain power because all you're going to do for day 2 is you are going to write down all of your bills, your utilities, your streaming services, your gym membership, anything that is a regular monthly expense that has like a set deadline. This is a great time to blast that playlist or listen to a really good podcast or like listen to a great YouTube video because what you're basically going to be doing is just going through your bank statement or your credit card statement, wherever you're kind of paying for these things, and just noting how much money did you spend on that thing and what date did that happen. You're gonna write that down and then again, just subtract that money from your big number. Now, if you run out of money while going through your bills, that's okay. That's useful information because now you know you can afford this much of what's happening this month and the rest you have to wait for your next paycheck. What you can do in the meantime is still note down what the due date is and how much money is supposed to be there. Once you're done with this step, you'll have accounted for every regularly recurring bill in your month, which is nothing to sneeze at, and I think is worth you getting a little treat. Now, day 3 is gonna be probably pretty short because what you're gonna be doing here is just filling in your frequent expenses that don't happen on a deadline, but you're pretty sure they're gonna come up. So this can include stuff like toiletries or haircuts. There's also where you'll wanna put things like fun money for you and your partner if you have one. And don't skimp on that stuff because having actual money set aside for your own joy and enjoyment is part of what's gonna actually help you to stick with this thing. And don't stress here about remembering absolutely everything. You're probably not going to. Just hit the obvious ones and then give yourself some money to set aside for just like stuff you forgot about. And then know that you can tweak this and add more stuff or rearrange things as it makes sense to you later. And once you've done that, you can get yourself a little treat. Now, for a lot of people, day 4 is gonna feel like the biggest stretch day because day 4 is where we're gonna deal with the big stuff. Because if we're being honest, it's usually not the stuff from days 1 through 3 that cause you trouble. It's all the stuff that happens on an irregular cycle. So things like having to get a car repair or replace your phone. It's really easy to forget this stuff or just put it off because it's not happening right now. It's not happening regularly. No one is gonna turn off your electricity if you don't start saving for car repairs today. And that's really unfortunate because then when a crisis like this does happen, it's super stressful, it's super overwhelming. And that's the kind of thing that once you're done with it, makes you wanna kind of stop thinking about money for a while and gets you back to just kind of business as usual, which for a lot of us is not great business. Fortunately, the fix is pretty easy. You just have to start preparing for those non-monthly expenses now. You start thinking about those non-monthly expenses as a monthly subscription you have to pay for. So a really easy example is if you have a car, then you have a car registration. So if you go look at your license plate, see when your tags are gonna need to renew, and then go look up how much that's gonna cost, divide that number by the number of months between now when you need to renew, and set aside that amount every month. And then you'll have it when it's time to renew. Now, if you start thinking about everything that could possibly happen in the future, that's going to feel like a lot. And for some people, it's actually going to be really helpful and cathartic to really think through and kind of itemize those things. But I think for most people starting out, you want to start simple. So a super simple framework that you can start with is just these handful of categories. There's repairing stuff for when things break. There's replacing stuff for when you need a new phone or you need to get a new pair of pants or something like that. Medical expenses, especially if you live in the good old US of A. Gifts for things like birthdays and holidays. And then you can just have one that's just like, I don't know, stuff I didn't think of. You can also ask yourself, like, what was the last thing that caught me out financially? And maybe you want to set aside money for that. Like if you did have to pay a big vet bill, then you should probably start saving up money for the next vet bill. But the crucial thing here is to keep it simple, to keep yourself from getting overwhelmed. Don't worry about having like every perfect category, and don't worry about like figuring out the exact precise number you should be saving. Put down whatever number feels good to you for where you're at right now. And again, if you are already out of money or you run out of money during this process, pulling from your big number, that's okay. We're going to deal with all of that on day 5. So right now, if you don't have any money left, just write down how much you want or need to be putting toward those things each month. And I guarantee you're going to feel so much better knowing that that big stuff is being taken care of. So get yourself a little treat. All right, so the last 4 days, you have been setting up this plan to give every dollar a specific job so you know exactly what your money is doing and what you can afford. Here on day 5, we're just gonna tweak that plan so that it's working just the way you want, and we're gonna set a reminder to make sure we are checking in with this plan regularly. So the first thing you wanna do is add together all the money you would need to set aside for a month, so everything that you plan to set aside, and compare that to your monthly income. If your income is lower than what your plan needs, then that means you need to start making some tweaks. You need to look at the plan you've made and ask yourself, where is there wiggle room? But your goal is to get the amount of money you make in a month and the amount of money you need to fill up your plan in a month to match. Once you've got those two numbers balanced, I want you to look at your plan and ask yourself, have any of the things that I've set aside money for this month already been paid for? For instance, if your rent or mortgage falls on the 1st and it is the 5th, then you've already paid for that this month. You don't need to have that money set aside for this month's plan. If you're halfway through the month already, you've already paid for 2 weeks of groceries and 2 weeks of gas. And that means that that money that you were setting aside is now freed up to do something else. So go through your plan and just pull out any money that's currently being set aside for something that's already been paid for. That'll give you a new pile of readily available money. Take that pile and ask yourself, what does this money need to do before I get paid again? And if you hit a point where you hit the end of the month and everything that you need to pay for is fully funded, here's what you do next. You take that money, you put it toward next month's expenses. Again, asking that question, what does this need to do before I get paid again? So bills that are coming due at the beginning of the month, hit those first. Groceries, stuff like that. And you just keep doing that until you have no money left to assign. And I know that was a bit of a roundabout way to make you do that. I could have just had you write everything down and then kind of stuff all these categories with money. But I did that because I want you to see that you can change this plan. You can move this money around anytime you want. You are allowed to change the amounts you want to set aside or to shift money from one priority to another when circumstances change or your priorities change. That's one of the things I find so simple and also so forgiving about this method, is because we're always focused on the money we have right now. When we move things around, we don't have to worry like, well, can I afford things now because I just changed things up? You can see at a glance whether you can afford things or not, because you'll be able to see what you have dollars for and what you don't have dollars for yet. And now that you have a plan, whenever you get paid again, you're just gonna take the money from your paycheck and ask that same question. What do I want this money to do before I get paid again? Do I need it to go toward these bills or these frequent expenses? Do I wanna put some of it towards savings? Or do I even wanna like proactively be saving toward next month? And when you're operating with the, oh, that's not gonna fit. And when you're operating with that sense of clarity that this is the money I have right now, this is all I have right now, and this is what I'm gonna focus on, it's way simpler to make decisions without feeling confused or overwhelmed. Now comes the next hardest part, which is actually following through on it. You want to be able to use this plan to help you make spending decisions, to say, do I really have money for that? Is that how I really want to spend my money, or would I rather spend it here? And in order to do that, you need to check in with this thing and look at it. So what I want you to do at the end of all of this is simply set a recurring reminder on your phone or your computer to check this thing regularly. And I know that the idea of like, I have to look at this thing like every day can sound kind of daunting. But first of all, you don't have to look at it every day. But also, the more consistently you look at it, whether that's every day or every other day, the easier it is to interact with. If you only check once a week on Saturday, then you're having to remember why you went to Target on Monday. If you look at YNAB every day while your coffee is brewing, then honestly, you're probably only processing like a few transactions, sorting them into categories, and then maybe looking at your plan and going, okay, I'm going to the grocery store today. I have this much money. Got it. That's pretty easy to do, and it's a real easy win to start your day. So the single best thing you can do with yourself to help you build that tiny little habit, to get that tiny little win in the morning, is just to set a reminder on your phone. Inevitably, at some point, you're gonna fall off the wagon and you're gonna forget to check in with your plan, and then you're gonna feel bad and you're gonna not check in again and you're gonna start avoiding it and blah, 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 blah. That's gonna happen. It's happened to me so many times. One of the reasons I made this video is because it was happening to me. So like, what do you do about that? What do you do when you build this beautiful plan and you're trying to be responsible, you build this habit, you're starting to feel like you get good with money, and then something happens and you just abandon it and you feel like a big dope, a big loser? And I actually want to put in here something that my friend Kat said that was deeply helpful to me, and I'm hoping will be deeply helpful to you.
There is no perfect pantry because you're using it every day. There is no perfect budget because you're using it every day. So you just have to say, I start today, make a fresh start exactly where I am with every penny I have, and I'm just going to use it. I'm going to forgive myself for what I didn't do, and I'm just going to start.
If you keep up this habit of giving every dollar a job and making decisions based on those dollars, based on that plan you've made, I promise you, you are going to get better with money and you are going to stop worrying about money. Now, if part of getting good with money this year for you is starting to get out of debt, we have a great video about that right here that you can check out. And you can subscribe to this channel for all kinds of advice and insight and personal stories of other people just like you who've gone from feeling worried and stressed out about money to feeling pretty freaking good at it. Oh, and don't forget your little treat.